30-minute reviews, beware of spoilers, and exploring hyperspace lanes are all available ad-free. But if you want to support the show, you can go to bewareofspoilers.com and click the support button that's available on the Spotify website. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to Exploring Hyperspace Lanes. I'm Adam. On this very rainy Tuesday evening. And what we're here to discuss today is the impending news. Well, not impending news. It came out today. In kind of a weird situation. Last year we got an announcement about 3 movies that were coming out. James Mangold was directing a Dawn of the Jedi movie. Charmin Obaid-Chinoy was directing a New Jedi Order movie with Rey. And Dave Filoni would be directing a new Heir to the Empire movie, wrapping up all the Mandalorian stuff, and that would be Dave Filoni directing. We didn't really know too much more beyond that. There wasn't a ton of information given at that time. What the fuck is this guy doing? So we knew those were coming. Then we get today's news. We get a 4th movie now in development. This 4th movie is directed by Dave Filoni. Not directed by Dave. Directed by Jon Favreau. It is set between allegedly Mandalorian season 3 and Mandalorian season 4. So after the season Mandalorian we get Saw and Mandalorian season 4, which is the next season according to Deadline, that is still happening. This is called The Mandalorian and Grogu. And it's produced by the usual suspects, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Kathleen Kennedy. Now, I'm in a weird place when it comes to this. I feel like what this is the movie that will bridge the gap to whatever new iteration of the show The Mandalorian is heading towards. I think Pedro Pascal is getting too big for this. And look, he's got to show up on set for the infrequent scene where he got his helmet off. Beyond that, it's a voiceover gig. So he's just got to do the voiceover work. Either way, it's still not easy with his current schedule, considering he's allegedly playing Mr. Fantastic, considering he is, he's with The Last of Us, he's an in-demand star right now. Granted, his tenure on The Last of Us Part 2 won't be too long for those who have played the game. But regardless, it is going to be one of the situations where he's going to be out of commission. You can't really do that. Doing a movie is a lot easier for that. I have some concerns. I don't know if The Mandalorian can. I think we're gonna see this hit a wall. If this movie costs $250 million, I don't know if it's going to make a ton of money back. I don't know if it's going to get people to reinvest in Disney Plus, and I think we've seen a rejection of that from audiences as Marvel has tried to be like, look, this ties into the Disney Plus shows, look at all of this. I mean, and I think we've seen the audiences kind of reject that to an extent. So I don't know if this is necessarily a good idea on that front. Especially if you're going to invest another movie into it to get that ball rolling. Not a huge fan of the title. There's a few questionable things that are happening here that I'm not 100% certain are necessarily the best ideas for getting this going. This could be a movie that bridges into Bo-Katan taking over as the titular Mandalorian. There are some questionable things that I have here. And I'm not super gung-ho about any of this. I think Filoni can direct good action. I think this is a movie where what they should be looking at, and Favreau did this. I think I said Filoni again. Favreau has done this before. You have to look at this the way they looked at Iron Man. The first Iron Man had a budget of $140 million. That should be your goal, not $200 million plus. And look, I don't know what we could do with this story. Like, invariably, this is not going to be a cohesive thing. This is going to be, at best, a part one of two. This is going to be a movie where it's like, oh, so invariably this is going to lead to Thrawn coming back. Is that what this is? This is the prelude to Heir to the Empire, and then we have to do another season of Mandalorian before we get to that. I mean, look, if the movie's entering production this year, which is something they announced today, and they also announced season 2 of Ahsoka is happening, if this movie's entering production this year, and this movie's coming out before, I think that kind of signals that this is going to be the May 2026 movie. I don't know if we get necessarily I don't know if this is a good idea. And again, we're getting into that same territory we were in when Disney first acquired Star Wars back in 2015, 2014, or 2013. When that acquisition happened, Iger went out there and Kathleen Kennedy went out there and made a bunch of announcements for a bunch of things, the majority of which never happened. The Boba Fett movie, the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, all these things that never happened, the Jabba the Hutt movie, the Yoda movie, the trilogy with Rian Johnson. All you're doing is telling people we're making this thing, we're making this thing, we're making this thing. I would have thought that by this point, and even like Rogue Squadron more recently in 2020, the announcement of Rogue Squadron movie that since, Patty Jenkins has departed, you would think they would learn their lesson. What last year when they came out and said, here are the movies we're making, they should have announced this too, or they should not be doing this. Because look, granted, this is happening. This is happening. But right now what we have is we have 3 other movies gestating that we don't know when they're going to happen, if they're going to happen. I mean, I'm still of the mind that James Mangold will end up departing the Dawn of the Jedi movie before that movie shoots a frame of footage. I don't know if it's Lucasfilm's going to part ways with him. I don't know if he's going to leave because he wants to do Swamp Thing more because he's still on tab to do Swamp Thing for DC. Or does he get fired from that instead? Or does he leave that to do Star Wars? I don't know. And to that end, I don't know where that movie falls on this slate. What I do know is we have 4 release dates and 3 release dates and 4 movies, which is not a good situation to be in when you're trying to make it seem like you have a cohesive plan. That's kind of the issue with where Marvel and Star Wars are right now, is that they don't feel like they have a plan. It doesn't feel like there's an idea there of here is what the mission statement is for what we're going to do. And by announcing a bunch of movies and seeing what sticks, we shouldn't have this level of insight. And I'm not saying that, like, if this leaked today and this was something that was like, oh, this was an internal thing that came out through a report and deadline, I probably wouldn't be on here right now doing this. I would wait for Josie to be ready to do that. But this was a post on Star Wars' website. Star Wars themselves, Lucasfilms themselves, came out and said, we are making this movie. And look, when The Mandalorian first came out, I'd probably be a lot more gung-ho about this. But now with the state of how the Disney Plus stuff has gone and all of that, I'm not interested in where this shows up. I will see this when it happens, but, I feel like I did with the announcement of Solo. I don't necessarily think we need this. If they had just shelved The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda or Grogu and just said, we're going to shelve them until the Heir to the Empire movie when they come back. Again, we talk about this thing where Star Wars is a nostalgic franchise. Star Wars is a franchise that is built on the fact that people long for it. You can't long for something that never goes away. And if you had benched Mando and Grogu and gave it time for audiences to not see them for a while, Because, like, when we did our predictions a few weeks ago, my prediction was that if a movie was going to start production this year, it was going to be, what was it? It was going to be the new Jedi Order movie, because that we had a team behind. We knew who was writing, we knew who was directing, we know actors attached. Like, that was a movie that could have started production this year. And it still can, because I think the next release date after this is 2026 December. Which would make sense if they start late this year. They can start that production and get on with it that way. I just feel like the pushing this through feels of desperation. It feels of we want to reestablish ourselves in the box office, but I don't think that we need this to happen here. And the other thing it feels like is an attempt to avoid paying people properly by going to a theatrical release and changing the title. I feel like this is going to be a 2-hour long backdoor pilot for what is Mandalorian Season 4. What Mandalorian Season 4 is called The Mandalorian and Grogu, and they pull that shit that Disney's done for generations, for decades, where once you hit Season 3, you end the show, you start a new show with a similar name. Sweet Life of Zach Cody, Sweet Life on Deck, Hannah Montana Forever. This was a way to get around giving people pay raises, because then you start back at level 1 of the payment scale for the new season of a TV show, even though it's an established cast. And then even what was it? They tried it with Arrow, with Arrow and Green Arrow and the Canaries. And that's what this feels like, where it's going to be Mandalorian and Grogu, and then when it comes back, it will not be Mandalorian Season 4, it will be The Mandalorian and Grogu Season 1. And then they'll go from there for 3 more seasons, or until we get to this Heir to the Empire movie. But either way, it's just, I feel like this is going on too long, and the build to Thrawn is not quite as interesting as it could be. We are getting Ahsoka Season 2. And I think the thing is, too, I think I would be more gung-ho about this if Ahsoka Season 1 ended with any sense of urgency. If Ezra shows up at the end of Season 1 of Ahsoka, and it's not this quiet moment of him there, if he shows up like the Hulk, and he's just like, Thanos is coming. Like, that's the thing where it's like, oh shit, we need to get this going. There's no sense of urgency that Thrawn is back, and it's just kind of like, alright, well, Ezra's back, so we're good, and who knows where they are, and there's something to do with the father, the son, and the daughter, but, it is what it is, on that note. And to be clear, again, not rooting against the movie, we will see how the movie comes when it comes out. Maybe there is a way in that I'm not seeing, and maybe it isn't me being cynical about it. Maybe there is a reason why they decided this needed to be a movie instead of a show. I don't think, based on what we've seen here, the fact that they're just announcing it as a movie and, we're entering production, feels more like, we're trying to get this done before his obligations to Warner Brothers kick in. We're trying to get this done, to have it hit a release date. But either way, are they just going to give another release date? Let's take a look at Disney's release slate. Okay, so I brought up Disney's release slate for 2025. We have Captain America Brave New World on Valentine's Day. We have Snow White on March 21st. We have Fantastic Four on May 2nd. We have Elio on June 13th. We have Moana on June 27th. We have Thunderbolts on July 25th. We have Blade on November 7th. And we have Avatar 3 on December 19th. Now, I don't think they want to clip the wings of Thunderbolts. The only thing I could think of is maybe this is taking Moana's slot. I don't know if they've entered production yet. Let's begin in the year, but was suspended due to the SAG strike. I don't know if that movie's hitting its release date. That's what I think this could be more. This could be taking that slot in June, at the end of June. But at the same time, it's like, what else is coming? What was the other movie in June? The other movie in June was Elio. And I think that putting Star Wars and Elio in the same month makes a little more sense. Like, because the thing is, the Marvel movies coming out next year, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, are the big summer ones. Because, like, they're not putting it in April. They're not releasing a Star Wars movie in April. They're not moving, unless they're moving Fantastic Four, which is possible. Or they're moving Blade, which is also possible. I don't see that happening. Unless they're saying this is going to be the May 2026 Star Wars movie. But again, if they're that confident in this, why would you put out, why would you put it at the end of the same month as Avengers 5? Unless they're saying they're not confident in Avengers 5. It's a weird situation. It's a very weird situation to have this movie where it is. I think it's got to end up being that, that date. I think that the thing is, too, I think that if the movie's entering production in April, which is what I think they said the movie's enter production in April, the production on this, like, it can't be more than 60 days. And then all that time on post. Like, it's a long time to be in post on this movie to shoot it now for a May release. And then that's working in reshoot time. I mean, I guess May 22nd could be it. I mean, when did they shoot Solo? Like, if we use Solo as a production timeline, which is not entirely fair because Solo switched directors halfway through, they started production on that in... They started production on that in January of 2017. They did principal photography started in February of 2017, and then it ended up pausing in June, and they ended up reshooting the movie through October, and post-production wrapped about a month before the movie's release. If we're going based on that, and we're using that as the production timeline, I'm not entirely sure that this movie is that one. Because they gave an 18-month production cycle on that. I don't know if you're going to do an 18-month production cycle and have it movie then sit there. And then on top of that, the entirety of Mandalorian Season 1, according to Wikipedia, took place from October 1st to February 12th, 2019, for release November 12th, 2019. So that was only a 9-month post-production on a reasonably tight shoot. I mean, look, if they can produce an entire season of the show in that much time, with as varied environments and characters as that season of The Mandalorian had, I don't know that you need to have this movie. If it's going in production now, I don't think that it's a 2026 movie. Because keep in mind, too, like, movies are entering production now or shortly for 2027. Or for 2025, I'm sorry. Like, Blade hasn't started shooting yet, and that's coming out in November. Allegedly. Fantastic Four hasn't started shooting yet. And that comes out in February. They haven't started shooting yet on Superman Legacy, and that comes out in July. They haven't started shooting yet on Thunderbolts, and that comes out in July. In July. I'm sorry, Superman's June. That's July. Are they going to do that much post-production on this movie? I don't think so. I don't think there's that much post-production to do. And especially if they keep the budget down, which they would have to if they're going to... Because this movie's not going to make $1 billion. This is not going to be, The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi or even Rise of Skywalker. I think you're looking at about $500 million. So you have to keep the budget down to about Iron Man levels and then go from there. If that's the case, I don't think this movie is taking that date. I think this movie comes out before that. And they reshuffle the release slate. Again, I would say it's probably the release date for Moana. I think Moana gets bumped, and this takes its date. But I think we're going to get a reshuffling of Disney's release slate one more time. Either that, or because Avengers is having its issues, it's possible they move Thunderbolts to Avengers 5. And then that July date is open. Because that would give them more time to work on Avengers 5, and it would give them more time to work on Thunderbolts. I think that's very much a possibility here. And if that situation's in play, then we're looking at an entirely different release slate for Disney for 2025. And I think, too, if they're concerned about superhero fatigue, that's a great way to space it out a little bit, move Thunderbolts back a year, and give them a little more space. But I think that's as good a place as any to wrap up for today. We'll be back with hopefully another episode next week. But until then, have a great rest of your week.